Welcome back to OMBI Anganwadi. In this video, we are here to understand in detail about DDL and DML and also see how they are different from each other in practical. Before that, please do watch the video on the different types of statements in SQL to get a better understanding. So we will create a simple database and a table to see how DDL works, and with this structure we will also work with some data to see how DML also works. Before we create our table, there is one important thing which we need to understand. When we are creating any table, we define different columns of that table, and each column is expected to store a specific kind of value. Say, for example, an employee ID should contain a number, an employee name should contain text, date of birth or a joining date should always be a date. So to define this, that is what column should store what kind of value, SQL provides different data types. So when defining a table structure, we assign every column with a specific data type to ensure that the type of values it stores is as per what we want. So here are some very commonly used SQL data types like int, which helps in storing whole numbers, decimal helps in storing exact decimal numbers, varchar, which helps in storing text, date stores date, and date time helps in storing date along with a timestamp, and lastly we have bit, which helps in storing true or false type of values, that is similar to boolean. So with this knowledge about the important data types, we are good to move ahead and understand how we can create tables in SQL. Now let's go step by step and work on it practically. So first we will be creating a database into which we will create a table. So let's create a database first. The command would be create database and database name. So we can have our database name as OMBI practice. And we have our database created now. And to get into this database, we will use OMBI practice. And now this is our active database. In this, let's create a table called employees, for which this would be the sequence create table followed by the table name. So our table name is employees. This makes SQL Server understand that the object we are trying to create is a table, and the table should have the name as employees. And then followed by this, within round brackets, we will define the table structure, that is what are the columns we want, and each column should be of what data type. So my first column would be ID, which I will say should be an integer, that is int, followed by the employee name, which should be a string or a text, for which I will say varchar, and within brackets here I should be mentioning the length of varchar this column should hold. So I will mention 50. So this will mean that this name column can have a maximum of 50 characters in it. And then I will mention my next column, that is department, which again is varchar. I'll mention 50, and all this needs to be separated by commas. Then I will say joining date, which needs to be date, and lastly I will keep mobile number, which is also a number, but since it has to hold a 10-digit number, so the capacity of big int is greater than that of int. Int cannot hold a 10-digit number, but a big int can hold a 10-digit number as well. Now I close these brackets. Let's run it now. Our commands are executed successfully, and we can see here as well that our table is created in the default schema, that is DBO. So this became our data definition language, where we are defining a database object and its structure. Now that we have our table created, I can always query this table using a select, which is a DQL command. I can say select star from employees. I can see an empty table structure which is created now with all these columns which we have defined here. Now assume that I want to insert another column into the same table for the salary. So I am not creating another table, but I am trying to modify the structure of the same table or trying to alter the table. So this is where the alter command comes. So instead of create, I will say alter table followed by the table name and say add. We want another column, so it is add salary followed by what data type I want to give. So here I will say decimal. So now this new column has also been added into this table. So this alter command gives us the ability to add columns, delete columns, and also change the data types of the existing columns. Next we have something called as drop. Suppose you want to completely delete this table structure which you have created, you use the drop command. So you say drop table followed by the table name. With these important concepts about DDL, next we can move ahead with what is DML. Before that, let me again create this table. And again I have my table structure ready. Now that we have our table structure ready and we have to work on data insertion into it, this is where the data manipulation language comes into picture. So first we will look into how we can insert data into this table. So this is how our syntax will look like. Insert into table name, that is employees. And now here within brackets, we mention the columns into which we want to insert the data. For now, I will say that I just want to insert into the first two columns, that is ID and name, followed by values. Here we will have to pass what values we want to pass into each column in proper sequence. So the first column being ID, say I want to pass 101 as my ID, and for the name, let us pass employee 1. And since this is a varchar or a text value, we pass it within single quotes. Let's run it now. We can see that one row affected. Let's run our query. And we see that the first row of data has been inserted with the ID and name. Since we have not passed any value to these remaining columns, it is just showing null. You can also insert multiple rows at a time using this insert into and values command, which will work in this manner. So after the first row, we will have to pass a comma and then pass the values for the next. So the second row would be 102 and employee 2 followed by employee 3. Now let's insert the department also. So I will mention the department column also here. and say IT, and employee 3, let's say accounts. Let's run it now. We have additionally inserted another 2 rows, and let's have a look at our data. So the data is reflecting as per what we inserted, and this is how, with the help of the insert command, we insert data. Next, coming to the next scenario where you want to make some modifications to this existing data what you have inserted. Say for this first row with the details of employee 1, you have already made this insertion. Now you want to change the department. For this we will make use of this update command. So we will say update followed by table name and say set and followed by the column name which you want to change. So here it would be department, and we will say set department is equal to finance, and let's run it now. We see 3 rows affected. So let's have a look at the data. We see that the department value has been updated for all the 3 rows. Why this happens is we have not exclusively mentioned for which row we wanted this department to be updated. By default, SQL understood that this update needs to be done on all the rows of the table. Like how we use the where clause with our select statement to specifically select what rows we wanted to retrieve. With the update, we make use of the where clause for the same purpose to define on what rows this update has to happen. And our correct command should have been set department equal to finance where id equal to 101, because it was for this row that the department had to be updated. But before we correct this data, let's understand another very important command, that is truncate. Truncate is also one of the DDL commands. The purpose of this is when you want to keep the table structure intact but only remove the data which is present in it. Now that we have made an error and updated all the department values to finance, we would like to remove all this data and insert the right data from the beginning. So for this purpose, we will make use of the truncate command. And we will say truncate table employees. Yeah, now we see that the table structure is intact, but only the data which was present in it has been removed. Let's insert the data what we need from the beginning. We have the 3 rows inserted, and with the help of this correct update statement, let's update the department value and we can check it now. We see that the right department value has been updated like how we required. Now coming to the last of the DML statements, that is delete. You would be thinking that when we already have this truncate command, what is the exclusive use of delete? Well, the answer to this question is that truncate removes the entire data which is part of the table. It does not provide any option to select only a specific row or a set of specific rows to remove. But with the help of delete, you can select only those specific rows which you wish to remove. And this can be done with the help of where clause by mentioning what conditions we require. Now let's assume we wish to remove only the record pertaining to employee 3. So the command would go like delete from table name where id equal to 3. And here we mention the condition based on which we want the row to be removed, and we say id equal to 103. And let's run it. We see one row affected. Let's have a look at our table. We see the table structure intact and also the first two rows intact. We just see that the row containing ID 103 has been removed like we wanted. So through these examples, we saw the key differences between DDL and DML. For a quick recap, we can say that DDL always deals with the structure of database objects and DML deals with what data is stored within those objects. And with the help of the different data types, we define what kind of data needs to be stored. So do like the video if you found it useful. Stay tuned and subscribe to OMBI Anganwadi.